So I recognize that there are probably a few of you here in worship that may not have people that look at you in what I'm about to say, but some of you are going to have people that look over at you as soon as I start describing what I'm about to say. So prepare yourselves. There are people who walk around in this world that love rules. Anybody getting a face from a family member? Anybody? Any people that love rules out there? All right, you guys are nervous. That's why you're not looking at anybody. But there are people in this room, friends, family members around you that you know love a good rule, right? There are also people in this very room who sees rules as a challenge to conquer, or they outright ignore them. Any of those people in the room? People that a rule is a boundary that's just a challenge to see how far I can go. Like, you see the red button, you have to push it. You know, other people are like, that's a red button, I would never push it. And then there are other people that are like, red button, must push. You know, it's like, I don't know, and then there's a different group. There's the group who likes the rules, who follows the rules when they make sense. And when they don't, they create their own. So there's kind of that in-between group that's like, you know, I am in a safe place, so I'm going to push that red button and see what happens. And then there's the people that are like, I'm not in a safe place, so I'm just going to follow the rule for now. So which one do you relate to most? Or do you kind of find yourself in the, I need the hard and fast rules, Pastor Sarah? Or are you the kind of person that you're like, if you give me rules, I'm out? Or are you the person that is somewhere in between those? Another way to look at what I'm about to talk about is to think about how sometimes when you're at a work event or you're at school or at some sort of community building event where you're learning things about yourself, they will do these kind of icebreakers where they use tools for you to learn about your personality, how you are in the world, because not everybody's the same. Everybody approaches situations in different ways, though some of us can be categorized together. Now, one of my personal favorite tools for this is something called the Enneagram. So if you've never learned about the Enneagram, I encourage you to learn about that tool. It is a great tool. It's not as personality-based, it's more motivation-based, but I have really loved learning about that in recent years. But there are lots of them. I actually did one recently. I was at an event with other pastors from across the connection, from lots of different parts of the country, and we were told to choose which animal we related most to, that was going to tell the leadership something about us. So Rachel, if you'll pop that up there for us. These are the choices. So you go ahead, you look at these. Which animal do you relate to most? We have the lion, the beaver, the otter, and the golden retriever. All right? Okay, I hear some of you reacting. I love it. All right. So the lion represents being very task-focused. Lions think of them as being zeroed in. They're going to get the task done, no matter what. All of these have the potential to be leaders, so none of them are better leaders than others. Then we have the beaver person, and the beaver represents being kind of a passive, reserved person. You just want to be a part of the machine. Tell me what my job is, and I will do it, and I will get it done. I don't want to make the decisions. I don't want to be laser focused. I just want to, fulfill my role. Then we have the otter, and otters are so cute, aren't they? They're the active, outgoing person. The person who just is active and involved and sees a problem and jumps right in. And then we have the golden retrievers, and they tend to be the kind of person that is people-praised or focused. They really want the attention and the kindness of others, and that's what inspires them. Now, my immediate reaction in a room full of impressive colleagues to this moment, which they made us stand up and get in the corners of the room. There's the lion corner, so you had to commit. You had to and not only did you have to commit, but you had to show everyone else in the room your card. And I didn't do well with this. I actually, the first question I asked was, what do they want me to be? To be a successful pastor, which one is the best tool? And so I'm working it out in my mind. Well, this. And then I was like, well, but where are most people going? That was the next question I asked. I want to make sure I'm doing the right things and I'm in the right spot. You know what I ended up doing? standing in the middle of the room, not being able to decide, not being able to choose a corner, because that's kind of how my personality is. I have to process things. I'm not a quick decision maker. I might feel things deeply, but I want time to really make a decision, and I know that about myself. So some of us fit really quick in boxes. Some of us are half otter, half lion, half golden retriever, half beaver. Some of us are a little bit of all of it. But the point is that whether or not you're a rule person and you pick up what I'm about to share with you today about forgiveness as hard and fast rules for your life, or if you're the kind of person that is going to take it in and think through it and apply to where it works with you, I want you to know that none of those ways are wrong. Because forgiveness is not cookie cutter. It is not simple. It is not an easy process. As Susie was showing with the children, there are, lots of layers with forgiveness. And there are lots of things to know when it comes to forgiveness. So I don't want you to hear this one little sermon on forgiveness and make this your, banner for forgiveness for all of life. But I do want to offer some things to help you think as you find your own experiences in life, your own pain and traumas, and find safe places to process that. So I hope that this sermon will encourage you as a result. So first things first, forgiveness means simply letting go of burdens. That's it. The Greek word forgiveness means let go. You let go of the burden, period. That is what forgiveness is. There's other parts of forgiveness that can happen as a result of forgiveness, but forgiveness itself is just letting go. And forgiveness is a process. It is also a muscle, and it's a way of life. So I was at a doctor's office recently, and on the wall there was a poster, and it was like a cartoon, and I should have taken a picture of it so I could share it with you. But the person is talking to their doctor, and they're like, "So I work out a little, and I work out and I do this, and I try to do all these things, and what do I need to do? Like, what do I have to do to be healthy? What's the baseline, doc?" And the doctor says to the person in response, "Well, just don't take care of the things that you don't care to last." I was like, well, that's kind of, curt. And so I'm sitting there next to the person beside me, and I was like, that's kind of intense. And he laughed at it, and he said, the way I read that is, if you want to keep your teeth, you better floss them. If you want to be able to walk, you better work out with your legs. If you want to, be able to pursue certain things in life, you better do that. And I thought, that applies to forgiveness. If you want to be someone who walks in life forgiven and forgiving, it's something you got to work at. You got to be intentional about. When the things that trigger you and remind you of the bad experiences that you have come up in your heart and mind, or make you behave in a way that is incongruent with how you usually behave on a daily basis, that should be a sign that there's something to work on. There's a muscle to flex, something that you can be a part of working toward. Because forgiveness is a conscious decision, and it's done at your own pace for your peace and your well-being. Forgiveness is not an excuse for the other person's actions, nor does it require you to reconcile with them or forget. And the example that Susie gave of when a friend hits you upside the head, Elizabeth, what do? Hopefully you don't get in a position to let them hit you upside the head again, right? You learn from those experiences. You set those boundaries in place in your own process of forgiving that person so that every time you see them, you don't wish that you could hit them in the head in return. I love that sister story. I get that at my core. Forgiveness is not reconciling or forgetting. It is the process of letting go and releasing negative feelings so that you can begin to move on and not continually give that person or that experience power over your life, power over where you decide to show up or who you decide to be in friendship with, to not give them that power anymore. Now, Jesus, in today's passage in Matthew, lays out a very particular process. And this isn't something that Jesus just makes up in the moment. In fact, it's borrowed from a legal process in the Old Testament. Since most Christians in the early church were first Jewish, they knew well the reference that is being offered up here, this legal process, when someone has been wronged. You take one witness and then two witnesses, and if they still won't listen, you present it before a body. This is not adapted for a church environment necessarily, but Jesus offers a process to the church to say, that forgiveness is important. Now, some churches follow this particular process by the letter of the law. And some of you may have been a part of churches where you've seen them follow this kind of process where someone has done something wrong, so one person goes to confront them. If they still won't listen, two people go. They still won't listen, they put them in front of the church. But that's not exactly what Jesus prescribes. Because one challenge in the midst of that is that too often churches forget they are not God. We are not God. We do not have all the answers. So, for example, I had a friend in seminary whose mother was a part of a church that approached wrongs in this way. And her mother was confronted by a church leader when she found out that she was expecting my friend. But she was not married, and the church did not teach someone to become pregnant without being married. And so a church leader came to her home and approached her about this and told her that she needed to repent and apologize, and she wouldn't do it. And so a second church leader came with that first church leader, and then a third, and then eventually they put her in front of the whole church. My friend's mom could not do it. And so they kicked her out, asking her never to return. They followed this procedure that Jesus places to the letter of every word of the law. And so as a result, my friend's mother avoided church for years, did not want to raise her own daughter in church, but in high school, she became friends with some friends that went to youth at a local UMC. And she began to attend with her friends and experienced a call to ministry. There are many people out there, maybe some of you here today, that have experienced that kind of hurt and trauma at the hands of the church. But friends, we want to be self-aware enough, loving enough as individual Christians and as a church here at Trinity that we don't pile on to those stories. Grace is where it's at. And when we start harping on the law too much, we lose the fact that humans and relationships are exponentially more important than right rules. They just are. So instead of focusing on the rules of engagement, I want to look at the motivation of what Jesus has behind it. One, that justice is important to Jesus. It's obvious that justice is important, that people who have done wrong things should face restitution. It's obvious that fairness is important to Jesus. He wants people to be heard. He wants witnesses to have a moment to be heard. It's important to Jesus that there is a process, that there is time and the love taken, that there is opportunity for working through these things. And then, of course, it's obvious that forgiveness for Jesus is a way of life. As Miss Susie said, 490 times, or sometimes it says 77 times, or 7 times, it doesn't matter. It means a whole lot of times. As much as it takes for you to let go of the burden. As much as it takes for you to walk in freedom. Which then begs the question, how do we forgive? How can we live into this way of life? How can we give up those big burdens on our hearts? Again, it is not hard and fast rules, but I did make you a slide. You're welcome. So here's a slide for those of you that need this. For those of you that are like me, you're visual learners. You need to see it with your eyes. The first step of forgiveness is to acknowledge the pain. It is to want to let go of it, to want to not carry it on your shoulders anymore. It is to acknowledge that you were, in fact, hurt. And that is real. And you're allowed to have those emotions. This is the hardest step because oftentimes we associate acknowledgement with offering the person that hurt us a free pass or giving them trust again. It is not that. It is just simply owning the feeling and our right to feel it and to experience it as we did. Reconciliation takes two people. Forgiveness takes one. This is your work. The second step is expressing and talking to trusted advisors. Maybe you have a counselor that you trust, or a best friend, or a mentor in your life, someone that you really you can trust with your inner feelings and know that they won't betray you. Talk to that person. Talk to God about it. Pray about it. Express it. Bring your hurt out of the dark in an appropriate and safe place. Third, remember. Remember what it feels like to let go. Because if you can focus on what it's going to feel like when you can get to the other side, it can give you the strength you need to keep going, because acknowledging and expressing is hard. So allow yourself to remember what it feels like to let go. And I want you to know that you are loved without a shadow of a doubt. I want you to know that God says you are fearfully and wonderfully made. And I want you to remember that you don't have to reconcile with this person. That could come. But this is about you. This is about you receiving that you are going to be okay, that God will help you through this. And so remember that feeling of being unburdened, the goal that you seek. And then fourth, unfortunately, repeat. Because it's a process. I so much like easy fixes. I like it when I can go to my pediatrician and my kid is sick and they're like, oh, it's an earache, here's medicine. Great. It's frustrating when it's a virus and it's like, how many days is this virus gonna last? Forgiveness is more like a virus. And different people's bodies react in different ways based on the kind of person and the makeup that they have been given and that they are. But here is the good news for today. With God's help and the love and support of your community, it is possible to work through the burdens that weigh so heavily on your head and your heart. Now, my friend's mom, at the time I met her in seminary, had not found a church yet. A church was a boundary she could not cross. A church was not a place that she would ever feel safe. But she did create a community for other women like her that found their life in a place for a need for safe space, for a community that would nurture and encourage them. Now, my friend is a United Methodist pastor, and as a result of being raised by her mother, she is a passionate advocate and a strong voice for others who need support. She will always say that no one will be turned away, that all are welcome in God's house. And that is true. And I hope that today you know that you are welcome here, no matter what burdens you brought with you. And I hope that when you leave this place, you might leave a little lighter than when you came.